Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I will be discussing a new release that as this video is being released is coming out on Tuesday, September 28th. And that book is Star Trek Coda, Moments Asunder. I'm going to give a very spoiler-free video here, mainly because I do not want to spoil anyone intentionally or unintentionally, so I'm going to be incredibly vague here. That might mean that I can't give fully formed thoughts on the book, but I believe that it is important that I not spoil anyone on this. So, the first thing I'll say is that if you have never read Star Trek books, this is not the place to start. This book, this whole trilogy that this is part of, called the Coda Trilogy, is wrapping up the entire post-Nemesis timeline for Star Trek. And I'll explain that in a second. But this is tying up close to or around 100 novels worth of story. And so as a result, this book has a ton of references that if you aren't well versed in the Litverse, you may not understand. I should caveat that by saying that you don't need to have read all of the Star Trek books to understand this book, but you shouldn't go in blind. You should not choose this as your jumping off point. This would probably confuse brand new readers. I've read in that era about 20 of the post-Nemesis books. And so as a result, I have a general understanding of everything that's happening in the universe. I understand the timeline, I understand the characters, but I haven't read everything so I can understand this. So you don't have to have read everything, but I'm just cautioning that this shouldn't be your first. Getting into the book, this book kicks off the trilogy. The first book, Moments Asunder, is written by Dayton Ward. The second book will come out in October. It's written by James Swallow, and the third book comes out in November, and that is written by David Mack. And this trilogy is meant to connect the Star Trek literary universe, which has books from about 2001 or 2002, from about the time that Nemesis came out, all the way to now. And it wraps that up while at the same time folding it into the narrative of Star Trek Picard and the new Star Trek series that are currently coming out. The reason that this is important is because it's serving two functions, and it allows this book to, and all the books, to somehow fit into the Star Trek continuity without them having to do a big reset. The authors, specifically in the afterword, discuss how they saw how Star Wars dealt with the big Legends reset, how they turned Expanded Universe to Legends and then decided to start over with canon. There is some debate on whether the Star Wars books were canon or whether they weren't really canon or the level of canonicity, but I should start out by saying that the Star Trek books in and of themselves never were canon. You've heard the authors say they never were canon, but they always would like to be as close to being accurate as possible. As a result, they are fitting this to fit the network of the new Picard series. So this is a big threat to the galaxy, is threatening to wipe out the entire galaxy. As a result, the crew of the Enterprise in this book is trying to stop that from happening. And this book is part of a crossover. The books will include the crews from Titan, the crews from Aventine, the crews from the Deep Space Nine will be involved, and then, of course, the Enterprise E. However, the Enterprise E crew has the center stage in this book. They truly are the primary characters in this book. And the main characters really are Picard and also Dr. Beverly Crusher. And there are some other characters that show up that would be spoilers, so I don't want to give those away. But Picard and Crusher really are the heart of this story. And what makes this particular story so good is that it makes you feel the nostalgia of the other books, and it at the same time tells a new story. The action in this story very much feels like Dayton Ward's other novels. If you've read anything by Dayton Ward, you know what you're getting into. The writing style, the characters, the action, the diction, the language, everything in here is exactly how it is in every other Dayton Ward story. So it feels kind of comfortable in that sense. At the same time, it feels much bigger than most of the other Star Trek stories because big things are happening and big crossovers are happening at the same time. One of the interesting things about this book is that it is able to throw in new characters or new events that are happening in this catastrophe, but Dayton Ward takes enough time to explain what's happening. For example, there is a time ship that shows up, and it is entirely possible that that time ship has been referenced somewhere. I didn't recognize it, but Dayton Ward gave enough information that I was able to understand the purpose of the time ship, why it was there, and why it was doing what it was doing. At the same time, there are little pop-ups from the Titan crew and the Aventine crew in this book, and when they show up, you understand it. And that is one thing that authors must nail. Authors must get that right in their books, otherwise it won't work out. Now, there are some poor aspects of this book. One of the aspects of this book is the themes. This book doesn't really develop any good themes. If you've read the Star Trek Prey trilogy, it deals a lot with forgiveness, and it deals with doing the right thing, but at the same time getting justice, but also allowing for kind of freedom. And so some Prey had some great themes. You also had The Fall, which had some great political themes in McCormick's book. And it had some great political themes in David Mack's book. And you had some great military themes and some great moral questions in James Swallow's book. Dayton Ward's novel here, Moments Asunder, really doesn't have those deeper themes that the other books have. And as a result, I can't put this on such a high pedestal as the other books. At the same time, I found this to be the most enjoyable Dayton Ward. Sorry, Mac. This is the most enjoyable Dayton Ward book that I've read to date. I think he does a really good job with this. I think that as a whole, this is an entertaining story. It is a good first act. I think that it has much more potential to get better in the second and third books. And I also think at the same time that the book really picked up towards the end and that there was potential for themes to develop. He just never got there. And I feel that if he had written the whole trilogy, Dayton would have gotten the credit for developing the themes, but instead Swallow and Mac are going to be the ones to actually develop those themes in there, particularly those of who lives and who dies, those themes. Another interesting thing about this book is that it is a trade paperback, which means it's a little bit more expensive than the old mass market books, but all Star Trek books have moved into the trade paperback realm, and as a result, I feel that this is a very sturdy, good material. I think they did a good job with designing the book, one in that the artwork is very nice to look at, and it also forms what's called a triptych, which means that you have 3 books together form one big cover, and so as a result, the artwork is nice, the binding is very good. When I read the book, it didn't bend at all, which trade paperbacks don't usually bend, but it stayed in very good condition despite me being a rough reader with it. And I think that there were other Star Trek books that I've read. Let me see if I can find them. Like To Lose the Earth by Kirsten Beyer. I read this in much the same way that I read the Coda trilogy, but something about the way this book was handled, it didn't hold up as well. It's tearing in places. It doesn't actually have the same kind of good feeling. This is a very plasticky feel, and so it feels uncomfortable in your hand at times, whereas the Coda book is very smooth, and it doesn't have the plastic feel. So this is very cosmetic stuff, but it's important when you're designing a book. So overall, I did really, really like this book. It was a lot of fun. It's my favorite Dayton Ward book, and I think that if you've read any books from the Nemesis, post-Nemesis series, you will feel the nostalgia in this book, and you will feel like it pays off. This book's trilogy, more than any other books, pays off fan theories and fan expectations and rewards fans. That's something that Star Wars has had a trouble with. And I love Star Wars. You can see I have a ton of Star Wars books over here. But Star Wars has a tendency to have trouble rewarding their fans for the hard work that they've put into their books. Now, sometimes they do reward them with things such as Grand Admiral Thrawn, or they reward things such as Mount Tantus showing up in the Bad Batch. But they generally have had a kind of a tough time with that. This book, however, really serves as a thank you to fans, saying, we realize you guys are fans, and so we're doing this final trilogy to try to reward you for the hard work that you've put in. I don't estimate that this is going to be as good a selling series as some of the other Star Trek books that have come out, such as the Destiny trilogy or the Fall or even the Prey trilogy, because those books largely stood on their own. You didn't really need to have read anything else because they were really able to catch you up. The whole basis of this book is that this trilogy is it's ending continuity, so it's trying to get you to understand what's already come out. So as a result, if you are a Star Trek fan, I highly recommend it. If you have read the Star Trek books, I highly recommend it. If you're looking to get into Star Trek, I would recommend one of the other series that I mentioned. I would recommend my other videos that I've made regarding Star Trek books. Those are better areas of jumping in. But I would give Star Trek Coda, Moments Asunder by Dayton Ward an 8.5 out of 10. A very good book with a few flaws. So, if you like this video, please like it and share the video on your social media and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Are you interested in reading this book? Have you read this book? Do you intend to start reading other Star Trek books? Do you have a question regarding Star Trek books? I might be able to know the answer, and if I don't, I will find it for you. But until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.